For decades, the world has been captivated by Princess Diana's public persona, her charity work, her fashion sense, her tumultuous marriage. But behind palace doors, a more intimate story was unfolding, one that could only be told by those who witnessed her private moments. And no one was closer to Diana's daily rituals than the royal chefs who prepared her meals. What did the people's princess really eat behind closed doors? How did her relationship with food change throughout her royal life? And why has her former chef waited until now to reveal these intimate details? Stay tuned as we uncover the culinary secrets that shed new light on Diana's private struggles and joys, told through the meals she requested when the cameras weren't rolling. Before we dive into these royal kitchen confidences, it's important to understand why these revelations matter. Food is deeply personal. It comforts us, sustains us, and often tells the true story of who we are when nobody's watching. For Diana, whose public life was meticulously scripted, her food choices represented one of the few areas where she could express her authentic self. These meals tell a story that official biographers missed. Diana Frances Spencer was born on the 1st of July, 1961, at Park House on the Sandringham Estate in Norfolk. The daughter of Edward John Spencer, Viscount Althorp, and Frances Ruth Burke Roche, Diana grew up in aristocratic circles, but in a distinctly English, comfortable childhood. Far from the rigid formality of royal life she would later enter, young Diana's culinary world was one of nursery food, hearty country cooking, and occasional treats. Former staff at Althorp, the Spencer family estate, recall Diana's early love for simple British fare. She particularly enjoyed shepherd's pie, treacle tart, and bread and butter pudding, comfort foods that would remain favorites throughout her life. Even as a child, those who knew her noticed Diana's complicated relationship with food, which at times reflected the emotional turbulence caused by her parents' divorce when she was just 7 years old. Diana's school years at Westheath Girls' School in Kent further shaped her tastes. In the school's dining hall, she reportedly became known for her sweet tooth and fondness for chocolate. Classmates remembered Diana sneaking extra desserts and sharing them with friends, an early sign of her generous spirit, but also perhaps a glimpse into how she would later use food as emotional support. At finishing school in Switzerland, Diana was exposed to continental cuisine, but according to school friends, she maintained her preference for simpler fare. One school companion reportedly told biographers that Diana would often skip elaborate meals in favor of fruit and toast. This pattern, alternating between comfort eating and self-restriction, would become a recurring theme throughout her life. When Diana returned to London as a young woman sharing an apartment with friends, she was by all accounts an enthusiastic but limited cook. Her flatmates recall her specialty being a hearty breakfast fry-up, a dish she apparently mastered to perfection. This period represents perhaps the only time in her life when Diana regularly cooked for herself, a brief window of normalcy before royal life changed everything. When Lady Diana Spencer entered the royal sphere, she encountered a culinary world far removed from her relatively casual upbringing. Royal dining was formal, scheduled, and steeped in tradition. Every meal had protocols, every dish was scrutinized, and spontaneity was rarely on the menu. But it was here that Diana would form a crucial relationship that would ultimately reveal her true self. Years later, her connection with the royal chefs. Darren McGrady, who would later become Diana's personal chef after her separation from Charles, first encountered her as a young bride at Buckingham Palace. McGrady has recounted how Diana initially tried to adapt to royal eating habits, the formal dinners, the rich sauces, the multiple courses. But even then, he noticed her preference for simpler fare, often requesting the staff make her lighter alternatives to the elaborate meals served to other family members. The early years of marriage saw Diana's eating habits closely monitored, not just by royal staff, but by the press and public. Her wedding day transformation had captivated the world, and her slender figure became a subject of intense fascination. Behind the scenes, royal chefs were instructed to prepare increasingly calorie-conscious meals for the young princess, though whether this came at her request or from palace officials remains a point of contention among royal insiders. As Diana grew into her role as Princess of Wales, her relationship with her chefs deepened. They became confidants of sorts, professionals who interacted with her daily, outside the rigid structures of royal protocol. In the kitchens, away from courtiers and cameras, Diana reportedly showed a more relaxed, authentic side. She would chat with kitchen staff, sometimes sit at the chef's table to taste dishes, and even occasionally bring young William and Harry to visit the palace kitchens. It was during these years that Diana began to exert more control over her meals, a small act of autonomy in a life increasingly defined by public expectations and private disappointments. According to staff from this period, she developed a pattern of requesting comfort foods during times of particular stress, a detail that would become significant in understanding her emotional state during key moments of her royal life. But as Diana's marriage began to unravel, so too did her relationship with food. Palace staff began noticing troubling patterns. Meals returned untouched, followed by requests for large desserts late at night. The princess, who had once dutifully attended state banquets, began making excuses to avoid formal dinners. Something was clearly amiss behind the palace walls, but the full story remained closely guarded by those who witnessed it firsthand. The breakdown of Charles and Diana's marriage is well documented, but less understood is how this painful chapter manifested in Diana's daily habits, particularly in what she ate and how she used food to cope. This is where the accounts from royal kitchen staff become especially revealing, providing a unique lens into Diana's private struggles during her most difficult years. According to sources close to the royal household, Diana's eating patterns became increasingly erratic as her marriage deteriorated. Some former staff members report that she would sometimes skip meals entirely during the day, particularly before important public appearances. Other times, she would reportedly request comfort foods from her childhood, shepherd's pie, bread, and butter pudding, only to barely touch them when they arrived. Here's where competing narratives emerge about what was really happening with Diana and food during this tumultuous period. One theory, supported by statements Diana herself made in later interviews, suggests she was struggling with bulimia, using food as both comfort and punishment as she dealt with the pressures of her failing marriage and the constant scrutiny of royal life. Food became the enemy. Diana reportedly confided to a friend in a conversation later recounted to biographer Andrew Morton. The kitchen became a battleground, with meals representing both temptation and control in a life where she felt increasingly powerless. According to this understanding, Diana's requests for comfort foods were part of a complex cycle of emotional eating, followed by purging, a private ritual that few witnessed directly. But another interpretation, one that some royal staff members have suggested, paints a different picture. This perspective suggests that Diana was actively trying to reclaim her health and autonomy through her food choices, particularly as she began to envision a life outside the royal family. According to this view, her changing requests to the kitchen, more fresh fruits and vegetables, fewer rich sauces and desserts, represented not just dietary preferences, but a woman attempting to take control of her own well-being. Supporting this second theory are accounts that Diana began consulting nutritionists and holistic health experts during this period, often without palace approval. Former staff members have claimed that Diana would sometimes request meals based on advice from these outside consultants, creating tension with traditional royal chefs accustomed to preparing classic French-influenced cuisine. The separation in 1992 marked a definitive turning point. Diana left behind the Buckingham Palace kitchens and established her own household at Kensington Palace. It was here that Darren McGrady became her personal chef, a role that would give him unprecedented insight into Diana's private life during her final years. But even as she gained more independence, the complex relationship between Diana's emotional state and her eating habits continued. During these years at Kensington Palace, staff noticed that Diana's requests often seemed to correlate with events in her public and private life. After difficult meetings regarding custody arrangements, she would reportedly request childhood favorites. Following positive press coverage of her charity work, her meal choices would become more adventurous and confident. The royal kitchens had become a barometer for the princess's emotional weather. What's particularly telling is that throughout these years, Diana maintained close relationships with certain members of her kitchen staff. While she famously became more distant from many palace employees, those who prepared her food remained in her inner circle, trusted with intimate knowledge of her daily habits and, by extension, her emotional state. It was a trust that would remain unbroken for decades, even after her tragic death. In late 2023, decades after Diana's passing, Darren McGrady, who served as Diana's personal chef during the last 4 years of her life, finally shared the complete unfiltered story of Diana's relationship with food in a series of interviews and a new memoir. After years of occasional anecdotes and carefully curated stories, McGrady revealed the full emotional complexity behind the meals he prepared for the princess during her most vulnerable and ultimately most liberated years. "I wasn't just cooking for a princess," McGrady revealed in a televised interview that quickly went viral. "I was providing something that few people could give her moments of normal comfort in an extraordinarily abnormal life." The chef described how Diana's requests often telegraphed her emotional state before she spoke a word. A request for bread and butter pudding often signaled she was seeking nostalgia and security. When she asked for experimental or international dishes, it usually meant she was feeling confident and forward-looking. McGrady's revelations were particularly powerful because they painted a picture of Diana's recovery, both from her marriage and from her eating disorder. According to his account, as Diana established her independent life at Kensington Palace, her relationship with food gradually healthier. "There were still difficult days," McGrady acknowledged, "but I watched her heal through breaking bread, sometimes literally." Perhaps most poignantly, McGrady shared details about Diana's efforts to create normal food experiences for William and Harry. "When the boys were home from school, everything changed in the kitchen," he recalled. "She wanted them to have proper puddings, proper Sunday roasts, all the things she'd grown up with at Althorpe. She'd often sit with them rather than having them eat in the nursery, as royal tradition dictated." The chef revealed that Diana would sometimes join cooking sessions with her sons, making pizza dough or baking cookies, moments of maternal normalcy that contrasted sharply with formal royal dining. These kitchen scenes, previously unknown to the public, offered a new dimension to understanding Diana as a mother determined to give her children something resembling ordinary family life. What makes McGrady's revelations particularly significant is their timing. By waiting decades to share these intimate details, the chef has allowed his story to emerge in a cultural moment more understanding of struggles with disordered eating and mental health. Diana's complex relationship with food, once fodder for tabloid speculation, can now be understood within the broader context of her emotional journey, from trapped princess to woman reclaiming her autonomy. When asked why he waited so long to share the full story, McGrady's answer was simple but powerful. "Some confidences need time. This isn't just about what she ate, it's about who she was when no one was watching." That deserved the utmost respect. McGrady's revelations about Diana's comfort foods and eating habits sparked an immediate reaction across multiple spheres, from royal watchers to mental health advocates to culinary professionals. In many ways, these kitchen confidences have reframed our understanding of Diana's inner life, adding nuance to a story that has been told and retold for decades. For royal historians and biographers, these culinary insights have provided valuable new material. Several prominent Diana biographers have acknowledged that food, a daily, intimate necessity, had been an overlooked lens through which to understand the princess. Tina Brown, author of The Diana Chronicles, reportedly called McGrady's revelations the missing piece that helps explain Diana's emotional landscape during those final years. The mental health community has largely responded positively to these revelations, noting how McGrady's account shows Diana's gradual journey toward a healthier relationship with food, a narrative of recovery rather than simply illness. Eating disorder specialists have pointed to Diana's story as an important reminder that recovery is rarely linear, but often involves finding new relationships with food that connect back to comfort, joy, and positive memories. Perhaps unexpectedly, McGrady's stories have also influenced contemporary royal reporting. Journalists covering the current generation of royals have begun asking more thoughtful questions about everyday life behind palace walls, recognizing that sometimes the most telling details are found not in grand ceremonial moments but in daily habits and preferences. This shift represents a more humanizing approach to royal coverage. Not all reactions have been positive, however. Some former palace staff have questioned McGrady's decision to share these private details, suggesting that Diana, who valued her privacy, might not have approved. One former royal household member reportedly told British media, "The princess trusted her staff implicitly. Sharing these intimate details, regardless of how much time has passed, feels like a breach of that trust." The royal family themselves have maintained their characteristic silence on the matter. Neither Prince William nor Prince Harry has commented publicly on McGrady's revelations. though royal correspondents have speculated that they might appreciate these humanizing stories about their mother, particularly those that highlight her efforts to create normal family experiences around the dinner table. What's particularly notable is how McGrady's revelations have influenced public understanding of Diana's legacy. By sharing how Diana used traditional British comfort foods to maintain her connection to her pre-royal identity, McGrady has added depth to the narrative of Diana as someone who remained authentic despite the pressures of royal life. The shepherd's pie she requested after difficult days has become a powerful symbol of how she held on to her true self. In culinary circles, there's been a renewed interest in the dishes that brought Diana comfort. Several renowned chefs have created modern interpretations of Diana's favorite comfort foods, often with a focus on the emotional significance of these dishes rather than just their ingredients or preparation. Food, these chefs argue, is never just food. It's memory, comfort, and identity on a plate. Today, Diana's culinary preferences have become an unexpected but significant part of her enduring legacy. McGrady, now an established culinary figure in his own right, has continued to share stories about his time with the princess through cookbooks, cooking demonstrations, and speaking engagements. These food-centered memories offer a unique window into Diana's private world that complements the more familiar public images of her humanitarian work and fashion influence. Many of Diana's favorite comfort foods have been incorporated into the permanent menus at cafes associated with Diana memorials and exhibitions. Visitors can now literally taste aspects of Diana's life, creating a sensory connection to her memory that goes beyond photographs and displayed artifacts. At Kensington Palace's cafe, bread and butter pudding, prepared according to what is claimed to be Diana's preferred recipe, has reportedly become one of the most ordered items. Prince William and Harry, while generally private about their mother's memory, have occasionally referenced food traditions they inherited from her. William has mentioned in interviews that he tries to maintain Sunday roast traditions with his own children, a direct continuation of what Diana established. Harry, meanwhile, has spoken about comfort food memories from his childhood at Kensington Palace, subtle acknowledgments of the culinary legacy their mother left behind. Mental health organizations focused on eating disorders have incorporated Diana's story, now enriched by these kitchen revelations, into their educational materials. Her journey is presented not just as a cautionary tale about the pressures that can trigger disordered eating, but also as an example of how recovery often involves reclaiming positive food experiences and memories. McGrady himself has established charitable initiatives that connect Diana's love of certain foods with her humanitarian spirit. His Cooking for Causes program teaches culinary skills to disadvantaged youth, often incorporating stories about Diana's favorite dishes and her compassion for vulnerable people. In this way, even Diana's comfort food preferences have become instruments of the kind of positive change she championed during her life. What stands as perhaps the most meaningful legacy of these culinary revelations is how they've humanized a figure who, despite decades of public fascination, has often been flattened into either saint or tabloid casualty. Through the meals she requested, the kitchen conversations she engaged in, and the food traditions she established for her sons, we see a more complete Diana, a woman finding moments of joy and comfort in the midst of extraordinary circumstances. In the years since Diana's passing, much has changed in how we discuss mental health, eating disorders, and the pressures faced by public figures. The revelation of these kitchen confidences has arrived in a cultural moment more prepared to understand the complex relationship between food, emotion, and identity. Diana's story, seen through this culinary lens, resonates with contemporary conversations about authenticity, emotional well-being, and finding comfort in an often uncomfortable world. The meals Diana requested when the world wasn't watching reveal a woman both vulnerable and resilient, someone who found ways to nourish not just her body, but her spirit during extraordinarily difficult times. From the shepherd's pie that reminded her of childhood to the international cuisines she explored as she claimed her independence, Diana's food choices mapped her emotional journey in a way formal biographies never could. What began as simple kitchen confidences has enriched our understanding of a woman who, despite being one of the most photographed people in history, remained in many ways unknowable. Through the memories of those who prepared her meals, we've gained insight into how Diana found moments of comfort and authenticity in a life often defined by performance and scrutiny. If you've enjoyed this deeper look into Diana's private world, let us know in the comments below. What other aspects of Diana's life would you like explored? And don't forget to subscribe for more unique perspectives on the figures who have shaped our cultural landscape, one meal, one story, one revelation at a time.